Hi guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel. In this video I am going to be talking to you guys about some of the books that have got me through the last few lockdowns. So the reason why I wanted to do this video is because we have reached a point now in the UK where all kind of social distancing restrictions and things like that are finally being lifted, and I personally don't feel 100% comfortable with that, but you know, I'm still going to be wearing my mask and things like that and just being very cautious, but you know, I am glad that we are finally getting to a point where we are getting back to normality and starting to live life as we used to. And yeah, I've been reflecting a lot, as I'm sure a lot of people have, on the past year and how it's gone for us and the things that have happened and the things that were supposed to happen but didn't. But one of the things that has really been kind of a saving grace for me, as I'm sure it has for a lot of you guys watching this video today, is reading and finding escapism in books. They have been so helpful in enabling us all to forget about everything that's going on in the world right now, and also it's been a great tool for us to learn things and discover new worlds and things like that. And yeah, like, I have a lot to thank books for, but just being there for me throughout the last few lockdowns has been great. And I have read some really good books during the last two lockdowns. I didn't read a lot during the first lockdown, but the first lockdown in November, and then the second lockdown in November, and then the third lockdown at the start of January until like May time, I did a lot of reading. And yeah, I'm just going to share with you some of my favourite books from that time, some books that just gave me a bit of escapism, a bit of excitement in my life, and just taught me something. So one of the first books that I'm going to mention is a book that I actually read in December last year, but Leicester was still in a local lockdown, so I wasn't at work, and it was a really bizarre time because it was Christmas, you know, and we're meant to be getting ready for like the biggest week of the financial year. But that is The Passengers by John Mars. So this is one of my favourite thrillers of all time, and this book just absolutely blew me away. It's about these driverless cars that get hacked, and there are these 8 passengers in these cars, and they're being held to ransom basically. And this book was just wild. It was a roller coaster. It was so fast paced and there was so much going on. Every chapter ended on a cliffhanger, and I just felt like I had to keep reading it. I actually remember I wasn't having a very good night's sleep, so I got up about 5 in the morning, and I remember reading like half of this book between 5 in the morning and like 8, something like that. It was ridiculous. But this was a very, very quick read for me, and this was the first book that I'd read by John Mars, and I fell in love with him as an author just from reading this book. And it was so exciting, you know, it gave me such a thrill, it gave me such a buzz, and it just, yeah, it was just a lovely little distraction, really, really intense. I really recommend this. Next, I'm going to talk about some books that I read in November, and I read these for a little readathon that I did on the 23rd of November, because that is Doctor Who Day. It was Doctor Who's birthday, and so I read these 2 little beauties on that day. And Doctor Who is a show that is very close to my heart. I absolutely love it, good or bad, you know, it's my favourite thing ever. And during the first lockdown, I'd watched the entirety of New Who from 2005 till now during that lockdown, and it was so much fun. And I got these 2 books last year. So this one is Adventures in Lockdown, and this is just a collection of short stories that people had written about the Doctor on their adventure through time and space, and this was just a really, really fun little book, and I loved delving into it and just getting lost in the Doctor's adventures. And then this one is I Am the Master, Legends of the Renegade Time Lord. And again, this is another book of short stories. There are like 5 short stories in here following different incarnations of the Master. The Master is my favourite Doctor Who baddie. Are they really a baddie though? I think they're just misunderstood personally. But they are one of my favourite Doctor Who characters. And it was just a lot of fun delving into this one. I loved the story with Missy, the female incarnation of the Master. I love her personality. She's just really quirky, really funny. But I really enjoyed the last story, which is a take on the title of a classic. The last story was called The Master and Margarita. And it was about the Master in Russia, and there was like a parrot called Margarita, and it was just really fun. So I really enjoyed this one as well. Another book that I read during that second lockdown in November, and is probably one of the most disturbing, most gruesome books I've ever read, is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I have talked about this book quite a lot, but it is a really good horror book. One of my favourite horror books, and I didn't think I would like this one as much as I ended up doing, because it is kind of like zombie-esque, and I hate zombies. I just I can't do zombies, but I managed to get through this book, and it was intense, and this one made me feel a lot of things, and I remember one of the things that it made me feel the most was hunger. It made me feel hungry, which is really bizarre. I mean, if you've read the book you will know, but there is an aspect to this disease that is taking over people that makes them very hungry, but they eat a lot of gross things. But you know, the way the author was describing this hunger and stuff, yeah, like it made me feel like it was almost as if I was feeling hungry myself. It was really weird. But this book was incredible. It's not for everyone. It does have a lot of very graphic depictions of violence, of animal violence, body horror and things like that. So be cautious going into it. If that's not your thing, I would probably avoid this book. But yeah, this was intense. It was wild, and it's still a book that I can't stop thinking about, and I read it like 10 months ago now, but it's still there. There are scenes in that book that I wish I'd never read, because they just haunt my dreams, my waking moments, you know, like this book had an effect on me. And for that reason, it was 5 stars, you know, it was great. It was everything that I want in horror books, you know, I want horror books to make me feel these kind of things. And yeah, this book was very successful in creeping me out. Next, we've got Ziggy Stardust and Me by James Brandon. This is a young adult novel. It's a historical fiction. It's set in 1973. And this is all about a young boy called Jonathan who is coming to terms with his sexuality. He's going through conversion therapy because his father is homophobic and doesn't want to have a gay son. His mother has died, and his idol is David Bowie's persona, Ziggy Stardust. And then he meets a Native American boy called Webb, who is a two-spirit person, and he is very accepting of the fact that that's what he is, and his tribe are very accepting of him, his family and friends. And this book was just stunning. Absolutely stunning. One of the things that I learned from this book is about conversion therapy and what young men during that time had to go through. And the fact that conversion therapy still exists. Like, there are still countries in the world today that carry out conversion therapy. There are clinics in America that offer conversion therapy, and that is just, you know, that baffles me that still, I mean, I'm not surprised that it still exists, but, you know, at the same time it shocks me that it does, because I feel like we should have come a long way from that by now. But anyway, yeah, that was very insightful because as a straight person, you know, I knew conversion therapy existed, but I didn't really know what it entailed. So this book was very eye-opening for that. And then also it was a very interesting look into two-spirit people within indigenous tribes. And that was something that I'd never heard of before, and it was really interesting looking into that a little bit more, and it's something that I would like to read about more and see more of in books. So those two things were really interesting and something that I really took away from this book. But this book was also just really emotional, and there's so many gorgeous scenes between Webb and Jonathan that just melted my heart. You know, this is a book that will just stay in my heart forever. I just absolutely adore it. The Ziggy Stardust references as well, because I am a huge David Bowie fan, so I really appreciate that as well. Yeah, this book is stunning. Go and read it if you haven't. Next, we have A Promised Land by Barack Obama. So this is one hefty bad boy. And I actually listened to the audiobook for this, which is probably the best way to consume this book, because there's just something about having Barack Obama telling you his life story, telling you about how he became president and what it was like to be in the White House. It's just something really nice about hearing his voice in your ears while you're doing mindless things that just really comforted me. And I felt so compelled by his story, and I learned a lot about the White House, you know, how it works, and about him as a person and the decisions that he made and the things that he regrets, the things that he's proud of. I just loved it all. I found it so interesting. I also listened to this a little bit after the presidential election, so I was very interested in all of that at the time, and I was very keen to find out more about the White House and what goes on and what it's like. So this book just really suited me down to a T at the time. And yeah, I learned a lot. I said that I learned a lot from this book, but because it's such a big book, I know that there are some things that I have probably missed, so it is something that I would like to go back and listen to. Maybe physically read. I don't have a copy of it, but I'm sure I could get hold of one somewhere, just so I can, you know, revisit it and pick up on things that I'd missed before and take more of it in. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Next we have Real World by Natsuo Kirino, and this is a Japanese mystery slash horror slash literary fiction novel, and I was very surprised by this one actually. This one is all about these four girls who are going to summer school, and one of the girls' neighbours goes on the run for the murder of his mother. And it's not what I was expecting. I was going into it thinking I was going to get a really kind of graphic, dark horror, and it wasn't that. It had elements of it, but it was a lot more than that. It was a very deep character study of these four girls and their lives and their personalities, and also the boy involved. He's called Worm, and he was delightful to read. Like, he was messed up. You know, and just hearing some of his reasonings behind the things that he has done or wants to do was just harrowing. Like, it really made me feel quite sad for him at times, but it also made me hate him. Like, I was so conflicted. Like, times I liked him, other times I didn't. And yeah, like, if a writer can do that, if a writer can make me feel very conflicted about a character and what my stance is on them, then they've won me over. But I really like this book. It isn't something that I would normally read, but it was just so compelling. There's just something about the writing that just really sucked me in, and I read it really quickly. I read it in March for the mini Spooktober readathon that happened, and I was really glad that I picked this one up. I do want to read more books by Natsuo Kirino. she writes a lot of really cool like feminist noir novels, and with really interesting concepts, scenarios and things like that. So I was really pleasantly surprised by this one, and yeah, I can't wait to read more by her. I think she is going to be incredible. Alright, and lastly we have the Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. So I didn't know if I was going to like this one or not, because it's kind of like a fake dating scenario, and I'm not a huge fan of that trope, but this year that trope has pleasantly surprised me, and this book was wonderful. It was just so much fun. It was cute and fluffy, but it was also a little bit angsty and funny, and it was just everything that I really, really enjoy in my romance novels. This one is all about a woman who is getting married, and her sister is the bridesmaid, but she doesn't like the best man, but at the wedding everyone comes down with food poisoning apart from this bridesmaid and the best man, and they end up going on the honeymoon that the married couple was supposed to have, because her sister says, you know, I can't not go on this honeymoon, it's non-refundable, you have to go. So they end up going, and they end up falling in love, as they do, and it's a lot of fun. I love the two characters together. I thought their relationship was hilarious and frustrating. There was lots of sexual tension, which just really, really got to me at times. You know, I was just begging for them to get together. And, you know, the only thing that annoyed me about this book was that one of the characters, when they're off driving down the island, she's like, a Muse song comes on, and she's like, nope, turn that off. And I was furious, because I was like, how dare you turn off a song by my favourite band? I'm not having that. But, you know, this book was just a lot of fun, and there was a lot of hilarious moments, and some delightfully juicy moments that just really stick with me. I'm really glad that I read this book. This was the first book that I read by Christina Lauren, and I was really, really surprised by it. I loved it. I read this in February for Valentine's Day, and it was just like the perfect pick-me-up. February was a very slumpy month for me. I was not in a good place. But this book, you know, was just the really good light relief that I needed, and I'm very grateful to it. Okay guys, so those are some of the books that got me through lockdown. Obviously, like I said, there are a lot more, but this video would be very long if I went through the entire list. Please let me know if you've read any of the books that I've mentioned in today's video and what you thought of them. Let me know if you're going to read them after hearing me talk about them. Also, feel free to let me know what books got you through lockdown and which ones were your favourite. I always love to hear your feedback and opinions. I am going to wrap this video up here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a cheeky thumbs up if you like this video, and please subscribe to my channel so you can see more videos from me in the future, and I will see you all in my next video very soon. Bye guys.